Whoa, people are jumping on. Looks like already. Good morning, folks. Got to double check my firearm status here. Wow, we have a grand total. Oh, wait, it went from 3 to 13 live viewers this morning. Hey, Tony's on. IDPA, good morning, Chris. How are you? Hey, everybody. Okay, we're waiting for folks to jump on, but I'm always amazed at how fast people jump on this live stream. I'm pretty happy with that, actually. I did post it on Instagram, so if you happen to be jumping on, or maybe if you find this live stream and watch it later on from the gram, thank you for joining. We got about 30 people on in the first, literally 30 seconds of the live stream, which means that Thursday morning live stream is going to be good to go. Of course, we're talking defensive rifle again. We are in the defensive rifle spectrum. If you missed last week's show, I'm sorry, maybe it wasn't last week's show. It might have been the week before. Either way, the last show that I did was all about defensive rifle setup and thoughts on everything from lights to suppressors and all that stuff. And for those of you that might follow me on Instagram, I've been posting little short clips of that or tips along the way. And that's what I'll do for this one as well. So if you're watching the live stream with me this morning, follow me on Instagram. Give me a follow on Instagram, and you're going to get to see a bunch of tips that I film both at the range and that I cut up from these live streams as well. Hey, if you're jumping on, I know I have a bunch of coin members on. Good morning, coin members. I know I have some competitive members on. Good morning, ACSS members. Good morning. Type in your coin number. Let us know you're a coin member and you are on. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Mike Seeklander. I'm going to be your tour guide for this awesome day, which we are starting with some awesome coffee. This is actually black coffee, pure black coffee. No, not Black Rifle coffee, just black coffee from whatever company I bought it from. All right, do me a favor. Tell me what coin number you are. If you're a new listener, watcher, viewer, tell me where you're from. Say, hey, Mike, I'm new to this. I haven't seen you before. I'm from Ohio. I'm from Tennessee. If you're from overseas, let us know that as well. And do me a favor for all of you old hats. Do me a favor and click that share button. So let's get right into it. This morning's subject is going to be defensive rifle. Specifically, I want to cover the high ready position. I want to cover the low ready position and key tenets of those positions. I do have, I'm not sure if you can see off to my left on the right-hand side of your screen, probably a small barricade. So I want to talk about the proper use of cover for a defensive rifle. And we could talk a little bit about switching shoulders. And as always, when I do these live streams, if I'm in the live stream and you have a question about something, just post your question in the comments. Let me know, hey, Mike, I want to know about the dropping of the elbow or driving of the shoulder. Why are you doing that? And I'll answer your question. If I missed your question for whatever reason, because sometimes, as you can see, the comments come onto this page pretty darn fast. If we had 100 plus live viewers, we're going to have lots and lots of comments. Just put it back up there again, copy and paste your questions. Sometimes I miss them. Understand, if I'm back here teaching, I can't always read all of the comments on the live stream itself, okay? Without further ado, and of course, I'll say good morning to a few people here. Who do we have on here? Wow, we have Mike from Knoxville, Tennessee. Good morning, Mike May from Knoxville, Tennessee, my old town that I worked for many years in as a police officer. Hey, good morning, Dell, Chris, Christian, how are you? David Garrett in the house. John, good morning. Linda, Rudy, Smokehouse Assassin. Smokehouse, that's an interesting Facebook name, man. My IG name is Mike Seeklander or Michael Seeklander. It's actually my name. I think that's my IG name. I changed it a long time ago. I went back to my normal names. Kip is in the house. Good morning, Kip Dell. Richard, how are you? Hey, there's Chris. Good morning, James. Stacy, good morning. Good morning, John. Outstanding. And Christian from Pennsylvania. You are new. Good morning, John. I see you on as well. By the way, John, and those of you members, we will have a members Q&A tonight. Willis is on. Good morning. Hey, Chris. Good to see you. Kathy, Ken, awesome. Mr. Will from Montana is in the house. Jeff Heath again. Jeff Heath, I love seeing you on, man. I think you're still where I think you are, which means that it is, man, it's got to be 5:30 there or something like that. So, all right, Bob Beal's on. Awesome. All right, hey, I see a lot of coin members and folks jumping on. Amador is on. Good morning. Great. So without further ado, let's get into the safety brief. And, of course, I do have some live firearms here. I am an unloaded show clear real quick with this particular rifle. I am unloaded and clear. Nothing in the chamber, nothing in the mag well. That is one of my defensive pistols, for lack of a better term. And this is one of my AR-9 pistols as well. Nothing in the chamber. I got to clean that bad boy. That's kind of nasty. But this is actually a second example of a system I covered last week or the week before in terms of selecting something that you could utilize without a suppressor. So this is a 9mm AR-9 pistol because of course the pistol brace that it's set up with. But you could set up something like this a little bit longer in terms of your defensive spectrum as well. We'll talk about those. We'll do some Q&A, but mostly I want to talk about technique and positioning, stuff like that. So my firearms are unloaded and cleared. Please, if you're joining me with this live stream, you have to have unloaded firearms, no live ammunition. So do me a favor right now. If you have a gun on you or with you or near you in the room you're in, please check it. Make sure it's unloaded and clear, unless it's your carry gun, which of course, then please no handling of live firearms. All other safety rules apply. So make sure you're willing and understand the 4 primary safety rules. Guns are loaded, safe muzzle direction, trigger finger discipline, and backstop and beyond. And in this case of dry firing, if you're in your home, if you're dry firing and doing what we used to call the DDC, the original live streams were called the DDC, if you didn't know that, the Daily Dry Fire Challenge, because I did it daily for a while at like 6 a.m. I was crazy back then. But the point is, if I'm dry firing into an area, I have a kid's room right there. So I'm not going to dry fire typically in that direction. I'm going to dry fire in a safe direction where I have the outer brick wall or some sort of stopping point. Even though I know guns are loaded, I check and I follow the rules, I want to have a safe backstop and beyond as well. Okay. We have a bunch of people on this morning, folks. I would love to see us hit like 150. That's been my goal for the last few weeks. We haven't quite got there. We broke 100 the week before. I'm hoping maybe a Thursday morning is it. I know we had 30 people jump on in the first 30 seconds. We have 65 live viewers on. If you haven't clicked the share button, click share. Select group on Facebook or your wall or a page. Maybe go share it maybe someone share it to the Black Rifle Coffee Company Facebook page. Maybe they'll actually watch this and send me some Black Rifle coffee, since I have a Black Rifle in my hands. Anyways, all right. So we're going to talk about some positioning, folks. I'm going to talk to you about the high ready and the low ready position and the utility of those positions. And understand that when I'm talking about the utility of these positions, and folks, if you're watching this and you see that question pop up later on, that maybe I'm missing during the instruction, help me answer it as well, because the context of what I'm talking about today has to be somewhat specific, right? So when we talk about context, we're talking about the situation you're in. So what situation am I in terms of this context? And the context that I'm going to talk about mostly is that civilian defender or that lone law enforcement officer that is has a patrol rifle you've grabbed from your car. Now I understand when we're talking about a low ready position, right, or a high ready type position, there are some military groups and probably some law enforcement groups that might utilize some of these positions because they are in a stack. They're getting ready to do CQB. They're lined up getting ready to go through a door or whatever else. And although I'm not opposed to discussing that concept, the purpose of what I'm talking about this morning doesn't really fit that context as well. I'm not going to do a lot of CQB. I mean, I do work with my son with the rifle. Actually, he shoots this a lot. He's 16 years old. He handles it very, very well. Maybe there's a chaotic situation in the future where I have a long gun and he has a long gun, and we have to do some sort of 2-person clearing aspect in a structure, maybe our own home, right? But to line up in a CQB position where I have to have my muzzle high because I have a person right next to me in front of about to go through the door, that's not my context. So as we're going through the material, understand the context that I'm talking about. Hey, good morning, Akeem. By the way, I see you jumping on. Mark is on. Mark R. Good morning. Hey, Chris from Parrish, Florida. McDaniel, McCullough, Christine. Good morning. How are you, Derek? Outstanding. We got a bunch of people on, folks. This is awesome. We're going to hit 100 here in just a second. If you click the share button, I know for a fact we will hit 100 in just a moment in time. Okay, so let's talk about position. So when we're talking about defensive rifle, the position that I'm talking about, or the positions that I'm talking about, are a position where you can be moving through a structure, right? Where you can visually search in the room you're in, or enter through a doorway and search in and around a car, in and around a vehicle, or whatever else. And the 2 positions that I want to kind of define are what I would call the low ready position, Okay, and this is a position where if I take the rifle or the carbine and I do a full mount and I aim it, now I may take the safety, put it back on, and I'm going to bring the rifle or carbine, and I'll probably use the word rifle today because the term is interchangeable, but you understand what I'm talking about. But I'm going to bring this specifically down and outside of my vision. Now, a couple of key tenets of a proper low ready position. As we talked about last week, the strong hand thumb is always going to ride the safety. That's number one, okay? Because whenever I take the rifle and drive it up to my face, I'm always wiping the safety off. I'm not sure if you can hear the clicking of my thumb wiping the safety off, but the point is the physical process of mounting the long gun is where I actually wipe the safety off. So I'm always going to ride that safety. Number two, I want to have the stock in a position where I can actually mount the rifle and shoot it immediately. I don't want to have to take the stock and find that position. So typically, and when we're talking about this search position, let's think the context through once again. If I've grabbed a long gun versus just my handgun for a search or a defensive purpose, that means that things are pretty serious, right? Something has had to happen. I'm arming myself with the long gun, which is certainly the superior weapon system, but it has its cons as well. It's a little harder to protect. It's a little harder to handle. And even more specifically, for those of you who don't train with the long gun a lot, okay? Let me give you all just a little different camera view. I'm going to adjust my camera down just a hair. Oh, sorry about that, folks. How's that? That's a little better. So when we're talking about the context, this is a situation where now the rifle is up in my shoulder, right? I have what we call the toe position of the stock set up. So it's a stationary point. I'm not going to be changing this on my shoulder. I'm going to find that position, and then I'm going to rotate the rifle on or off that position, right? I'm never going to let this move off my body, right? Now, for a true relaxed, low ready position, I may continue to move the rifle down even farther and farther and farther. So you've probably seen this before, a position like this, but notice the toe, in this case, the arm brace of this pistol, right, of the rifle or the system you're utilizing, right, is in the center of my chest, right? It's in a position where I can very, very quickly mount and shoot, right? I don't have to find that position. And understand, with an arm brace type configuration or a stock or whatever else, your cheek weld in the position of your cheek on the stock is critical. So the fact that I have to put my cheek weld in position on the stock and see what I need to see is going to line my eye up with the optics. So where you find this position, what this position is something that will allow you to gain more speed. Okay. Now, the key here is when I'm doing this, I'm simply bringing the rifle or the pistol out of my vision. Okay. So I'm not occluding my vision. So that's my search position. Now let's compare that to what we call the high ready or the muzzle high position. The muzzle high position, we may take the stock off, and the stock is probably in a position where you're just under your armpit with it, right? Somewhere down here, right? So the muzzle is high now, the stock is low. To shoot, I've got to drive the pistol or rifle back up into position, find my cheek weld, and fire my shots. Of course, same principle applies in terms of riding the safety. We're always riding the safety itself. That never changes. But the point is, when I do this, I move that into position and I fire my shots. Now, you may say, well, Mike, why would you use a high ready versus a low ready position? So once again, as we talked about in the beginning of this live stream, and by the way, good morning, folks. I see Chris from New York. Hello from New York. And Brian, I think we said hi to Brian from Tennessee again. Good morning. And Michigan, coin number 2221 is on. Good morning, Jesse. How are you? We got a bunch of folks on this morning. 84 people. We're about to hit 100. Maybe we'll hit like 300 today or 600. All right, no more questions right now. So the high ready position versus the low ready position. Why would I use a high ready position? Well, here's the deal. For me, it's not a position that I will use very often, but it's a position, as you see in this live stream here in a little bit, that I still recommend you practice. So when would I use a high ready position? Well, let's say I'm hanging out and I've got my kid with me, and the kid's short, right? They're this tall, whatever else, and they're huddled up next to me. And I'm kind of, trying to find a thread in the home. I'm trying to get out of the house, out of the store, out of the parking lot, whatever. You can think about it any way you want to do. And now I hear something over there, right? Well, I'm not going to muzzle my kid. So I may switch from this position to come over the top of their head and realize, boom, there's a threat. right? So the high ready position is not a position I would use very often. And by the way, if you put it on a timer and work on this, right, where I'm snapping the gun up, let's say 45-degree low ready, boom, and fire a shot, right, versus 45-degree high ready, boom, snap a shot. The high ready will feel faster to you. But when you put it on a timer, the low ready position is actually faster in most cases, almost consistently across the board. So my primary search position is going to be the low ready, okay? A couple more things that I don't necessarily like about a high ready. If I'm walking through a door, right, in my house, let's say I grab this home defense system pistol rifle, and I want to search my living room, and I have to go through multiple doors. If I have a high ready position, it feels like I can drive the muzzle out there very, very fast. The problem is if I come within contact distance of someone, I walk around the corner and they're right there. They're right where you are, right? There are a couple things that'll probably happen. I will attempt to drive the muzzle out there and fire shots, right? The problem is you're probably not going to allow that to happen. So there's a very good chance you're going to be pushing the muzzle in this direction. And what is in this direction? Yeah, it's me. It's my face. So as we're fighting for this rifle, I get to a position where as I'm fighting, and now you're collapsing and on top of me and hugging me and trying to punch me in the face. Now the muzzle does me no good at all. I can't collapse it in any manner really to shoot from a close quarter position, right? Where if I were in a low ready position and I ran into you, you know, at the camera distance, that's you right here. You know, as you're grabbing the gun, maybe you drive my muzzle down. I can force the stock down and under my shoulder, right? And I could probably build a shooting position and or shoot anywhere in your lower body, right? So the other thing I don't necessarily love about the high ready is it can be driven into my face if I end up in contact distance with someone. Now, I have heard proponents say, well, with the high ready, you know, boom, you can strike right with the muzzle itself. Well, here's the deal. You know, with the low ready, I can strike as well, right? I can come over the shoulder and I can strike as well. So I can build from the low ready. I personally like. I can build some close quarter shooting position where I rotate the gun over my shoulder. Maybe it gets knocked off my shoulder. I can shoot from here. Boom, 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 boom. Okay. I can also take the gun and I can rotate it down where I'm driving it under my shoulder, right? So this is a close quarter, what I call a retention position. This is a shooting position as well. So understand that for me, the utility of the low ready versus the high ready is a little more so than the high ready. Now, like I said, I just articulated a couple of minutes ago where you may have to go from a low ready to a high ready to move over the top of someone and then back into a shooting position. So my recommendation is that you don't necessarily say, hey, I'm only going to work a low ready position, or I'm only going to work a high ready position, or whatever else. My recommendation is you practice, you know, mounting from multiple positions, which is why on one of my defensive rifle programs, you know, the stuff we're talking about today, by the way, is all based in this book. We posted a link a while ago for it. There's also a link in the description of the show this morning where you get your challenge coin. That's for an AWS membership coin. You get this program and many more programs inside that area, but you can buy the book independently if you want. But the stuff I'm talking about is all in this book. That's what I'm basing the live stream off of. But the point is, I really don't think you should tie yourself to one position. And we'll do some Q&A here in just a second. Oh, and Jason just pointed out, happy St. Patrick's Day. I'm sorry, man, folks. I didn't say that. Happy St. Patrick's Day. If you're not wearing green, pinch yourself. I don't know if I'm wearing green. Wait a second. I think, nope, my pants aren't green. I think I might have a green underwear on. I'm not sure. Anyways, happy St. Patty's Day. Sorry, I didn't mention that. So back to the focus. If you are working with your defensive rifle or carbine or pistol, like this is a pistol technically, I would recommend you work on the low ready and the high ready positions. Hey, good morning, Tina. It's your birthday. Happy birthday and happy St. Patrick's Day. It's Tina's birthday, folks. Everybody say happy birthday, Tina. That's awesome. And Abdel from Egypt. Oh, wow. Abdel from Egypt is on. That's awesome, Abdel. That's interesting. Very cool. Nathan from Connecticut. Good morning. Brian is on as well. And looks like I've already said good morning to Chris. Okay. So we've talked about the tenets of the low ready position. Once again, key details of a low ready position. Number one, the stock or the arm brace is going to be in a position where you can drive the gun directly up to your face. Number two, always ride the safety with your strong hand and thumb. Number three, the rifle or the carbine or the system is only going to be low enough where it's outside your vision, not too low. This is what I call a very relaxed low ready position. What I'm talking about is more of an active low ready position where I'm actively searching for a threat and I can mount and I can shoot very, very quickly. The tenets of a high ready position are, once again, the muzzle comes up. Be careful with this high ready position though. I would not want the muzzle to occlude my vision. I don't want it there. Because right now, if I'm searching in a room, everyone's like, well, I'm search with the muzzle, lead with the muzzle. But here's the point. Now I'm covering everything up downrange there with the muzzle. So have the muzzle in a position where now I could search. It's just below my periphery vision, right? But I can still drive it up into position very, very quickly if I want. Put them both on a timer and understand that the low ready position at 45 degrees or so down, or however many degrees that would be, and the high ready in a comparable position is a little bit faster. Okay, so there's your tenets of a good low ready or high ready position. I do recommend you practice them both. So I recommend you practice some, mounting, pop, pop, shooting, pop, right, with the low ready position, and I recommend you practice with the high ready position. Now, in terms of developing speed with the low ready, man, I'm talking way too fast. I need some more coffee real quick. I got to be careful. Some of these times I stop for coffee, I got to make sure I get back on track because a lot of these things we're cutting up into tips for my Instagram page. If you're not following me on Instagram, give me a follow. Anyways, back to it. So the tenets of developing speed are as follows. Number one, drive the long gun into your face and center chest area as fast as possible. Like I see a lot of folks in rifle classes and they're like, they just kind of just loop it up there and just kind of hope it gets up there. This should be an aggressive position, right? So I'm literally driving, boom, right into my cheek. The second thing on speed is the sooner I touch my cheek to this arm brace or stock, the sooner it gets my right eye in front of the optic. The sooner I see the optic, the sooner I fire that shot. So what you really need to focus on is your cheek weld. The key, like I'm looking at the dot of my optic, the key to the dot and finding the dot fast is literally driving that cheek weld into position, right? So if you're not feeling yourself, drive that cheek weld into position. And by the way, every single time I do this, you hear click, right? Click, safety, click. You hear that safety going on and off because I'm practicing that process of wiping the safety on and off and on and off. But the key to speed with that long gun is getting that cheek weld into position so you can find the dot. And if you can find the dot and it's on the target somewhere, which it probably will be, you can fire that shot. Okay, that's going to be the key. So my recommendation is you work all three of these positions. I've shown you two of them: high muzzle, right? Low muzzle, just slightly low muzzle. And the last one I want you to consider working is stock over shoulder, right? When we talked about this a little bit in the PCC cycle, the reason I work stock over shoulder is because if I'm going to a position where I have to move, right? I may move by running like this and swing my arms. So the stock is going to be over my shoulders. The other reason is the stock, literally may get knocked off your shoulder, or you may choose, boom, to shoot from this position, close quarter position, right? And then have to re-engage a little bit longer range from a different place. Now that may be a little bit contrived, maybe, I don't know. But, I like to practice flowing from close range positions to long range positions where I have to fire from maybe long range positions, boom, 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 and then to a close range position, assuming that maybe they close the distance. And I think you can put it all together, right? If you're training with a rifle, we're training for a situation where it's probably maybe worst case, maybe zombies attack. I don't know. But the point is work all three of those positions when you're actually doing your rifle practice. Okay. Good morning, folks. There's even a hope mount with Mr. Will Parker. I like that, right? Brian, sir, I was talking with clearing rooms, etc., through the sites. Good. So it's a good point, Brian. See, when you're clearing rooms, should we be clearing through the sights? So for me, I disagree with that. I would not have the rifle or carbine in front of my face, right? And there's some circumstances. Let's leave military and true long. Well, let's leave military CQB in a different basket. So if you're jumping on this live stream, let me remind you what the context is: civilian defensive situation, or maybe single armed law enforcement, or maybe even dual armed law enforcement patrol rifle deployment. So what leads the way in terms of my reaction to mount and shoot is my vision. So if I take my vision and now I put the whole rifle in my arm, in my vision, okay, so now what I can't see is if you're a person right now, because my eyes right now are occluded by all this stuff, not completely, but they're to an extent occluded by all this stuff. If I'm searching or entering like this, I can't really see. Like right now, I can't see the screen of my computer with my hands up here. I couldn't see the threat or their hand. I couldn't make a determination legally if I'm going to take that shot. I couldn't make the determination if I'm clearing the structure, i.e. my own house, if that's my 16-year-old son that just snuck in after hanging out with his girlfriend in the parking lot, or if that's truly an intruder. So I'm not a fan of occluding your vision. Occluding your vision means blocking your vision with your rifle in your search. Because if you are that single law enforcement operator, multiple law enforcement operator, or heck, even a law enforcement team or individual civilian clearing and trying to secure a structure for whatever reason, your vision has to tell you that's a threat, I can shoot that person. That's not a threat, I can't shoot that person. So by clearing through the sights or through the optic, you're occluding your vision, you're slowing down the visual process and the reaction process. And understand, everything I say on Facebook and all these live streams is simply my educated opinion based off of years of doing this and teaching and hearing student questions. So I would not be searching through the optic. I don't think that's a great idea. I think you should think that through before you do that. Okay. Percentage of room or pie cuts is what I was taught in cleaning room. Like 10% of the time. It's a Lawrence, John Lawrence, is that the right name? Yeah, so we'll talk about that here in a second. We'll talk about that because I have a piece of cover set up. I want to talk about that next. And Smokehouse, tips for right-handed shooters that are left-eye dominant. You're looking at one. There are no additional tips. There's really nothing to give you in terms of a tip. When I shoot with my right shoulder, I have to aim with my right eye. Now, if you're strongly left eye dominant, you may have to squint your left eye in order to see the optic, which is also one of the reasons why I use a very bright, robust, one power optic with a big window. Holosun, I love aim points. I've got a bunch of aim points. I've been running Holosuns for a while now. They're not a sponsor. They don't really give me scopes or anything like that. But they've been great optics so far. So I'm very, very happy. So you're just using your right eye, if that makes any sense. Okay. Let's talk about this a little bit, right? So let me move my prop into position. I need an automated prop, right? I need like an assistant. All right. So when we're talking about, first of all, searching into a room, right? And I'll talk about the use of cover here in a second as well. I'm going to actually move this a little bit more. It's the only thing that sucks about some of my live streams is I got to deal with all the prop stuff. So if you were to have to search a room, someone mentioned slicing a pie 10% of the time, right? So if I am searching, let's say, by the edge of this doorway, and there's a room there. So just imagine this to be a full doorway. This is the left edge of the wall. This would be the right edge of the doorway. Maybe as I'm approaching this doorway, right, I'm going to do a few things. Number one, I'm going to tuck this elbow down, and I'm going to cheat the stock out to my shoulder. Understand that my preference is to have a centered stock position. So a centered stock position for flat-footed maximum recoil control. But I vary the stock position based on what I'm doing. So there's not always a one thing right answer if you think that through. And in this case, I'm going to cheat the stock a little bit farther to my right shoulder. But that's also one of the reasons in my drop, drive, pull, press, I teach you to drive the shoulder forward into the gun, right? But what I may do here is have the rifle in a position where I'm behind cover, my right foot is behind cover, I've dropped my right elbow, so I'm trying to stay as much behind cover as possible, and I'm visually slicing the pie into this room, right? This is what we would call a slow, deliberate search process versus some sort of dynamic movement into the room, CQB that you might see, an Army Ranger do. Completely a different thing. This is a slow, deliberate process where I'm searching through a doorway. Maybe you heard a sound. Maybe there was a bump in the night. You live on the south border of Texas. You got a lot of drug runners and very dangerous people, and you can't call the sheriff's department every single time you hear a bump in the night. So in this case, I'm taking the stock, sheeting to my right shoulder, tucking the right elbow. I'm completely behind cover. I'm keeping the muzzle out of my vision, right? As I'm searching. Now, if I saw someone in that room, right, and I recognize that that's a threat, and boom, they turn and they're holding a shotgun or whatever. They bring the gun to bear. Now I can utilize cover efficiently and then fire my shots. Now understand, when I'm doing this, because I'm leaning to the right in this case, I'm putting my right foot forward, right? So I'm putting my body weight on my right foot, but I'm really trying to protect all of my body parts. That's why the elbow's down here, not out here, okay? And if I show you this from this perspective, right? So this would be a lean out, right? Where I'm exposing a lot of the elbow. So I'm leaning out. You can see how much of me you can see and shoot. Now let me get this, let me get into a better position or a proper position. So now I'm going to put my right foot behind cover. My right foot is forward because I'm leaning to the right, okay? Now I'm going to cheat the stock to my right shoulder. I'm going to tuck the right elbow, right? So in this case, I'm very protected. I'm searching. There's a huge difference in my exposure. Now, granted, I have to expose, I got big shoulders, folks. I have to expose some of my body to shoot from that position, right? I can't just do the old, let me hope that works. So I have to have some exposure. But you see the difference, right, in this. Look at it, right, versus this. Big difference, right? Tuck the elbow. And for some of you big old meat eaters, right, it's harder. You're going to have to literally force your elbow down, which is why I cheat the stock out here a little bit and try to keep as much of my elbow behind cover as possible. You don't want to get shot in the right arm, right? Okay, hold on, folks. Looks like I got a bunch of comments here. Yes, Brian, you're welcome for answering that. Oh, thank you, Jeff, for saying that. Hey, Jim from Miami. Good morning. How are you? All right, so I don't see anything else in terms of questions right now. So I want to talk to you about one more thing. Hey, by the way, we have 80 people on. We didn't hit 100. If you click share, maybe we'll bump over 100. So click share, and we'll spend another couple of minutes talking about these positions and use of cover. I am going to show you also with my cover setup here. I'm going to move a little bit farther to this direction. I'm going to show you why I might switch shoulders and why I'm an advocate of the potential of switching shoulders. I'm not saying it's the right thing, but once again, it's information you have to decide on. William, we're going to show the left approach here in a second. Okay, so let me go ahead and move this bad boy over a little more, right? Okay, so I got my cover set up, right? There we go. The challenges of live streaming by yourself, folks. So if I'm using cover to the right, I'm on my right shoulder. If I go to the left, I want you to watch the exposure on the left. If I keep the rifle or pistol on my right shoulder, watch how much exposure there is. So when I go to the left to get out there into a shooting position, there's a lot more exposure to my body. So this is my exposure to the right, right? Not much exposure, right? Pop, 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 right? To the left, right? There's a lot of exposure. So the whole thing on right or left is, should we go bilateral? The fancy term for switching shoulders is shooting bilateral. So I'm going to go to the opposite shoulder, and I'm going to shoot with my left shoulder. So you're going to have to make a determination on a few things. Number one, will the bilateral position work for you? Can you successfully shoot off the other shoulder? Because of your vision and body type or whatever else. Number two, are you willing to put the work in? Are you willing to put the work in, shooting off your right shoulder or your left shoulder, learning to transfer, learning to manipulate the safety off the other hand? You know, it's difficult. It's a weird position if you're not used to that, right? So will you put the work in? Because if you won't put the work in, to be honest with you, you're probably better off staying on your strong shoulder and just accepting the fact that you're going to have more exposure. But if I go to the other shoulder, right? So this is my exposure for my right, right? This is my exposure on the left, right? But if I go to the other shoulder here, now I can simply reverse it. So now I'm much more protected, right? Okay, I have a much less exposure of my body. You know, it's probably 40 or 50% less exposure in terms of my body. So should I switch shoulders? Well, only you can answer that. I can't answer that for you, but I can promise you this. If you don't practice that way and train that way and do lots of repetitions on your off shoulder, it's going to be very difficult for you to use that technique under stress, okay? So, Chris, I will slow down for you. And Michael, thank you for that comment. So William, so you saw the other side. So for me, I will probably switch shoulders in most cases. So let me define that too. If I am using a long gun in my home and I'm doing a dynamic movement, like I hear family members yelling, maybe multiple people have, maybe someone kicks the front door open, someone kicks the back door open, and these folks have targeted my home for whatever reason. I know it sounds contrived. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I hope it never happens like that. But I'm just saying, if that were the case, and I grab a long gun and I'm coming into that position, I'm coming in pretty dynamic. So I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time switching shoulders back and forth. I'll probably stay on my strong shoulder and understand that I'm going to have a little more exposure on a left-leaning wall or the edge of a wall that I have to go to my left on, right? But if I have the time, right, as I'm searching for that right wall, you know, I'm searching, maybe I come up to that left doorway, I would automatically switch the other side, and I could search the other side. So I'm a lot more protected in terms of my position of cover. So let's talk about the shoulder switch itself. The shoulder switch is really not that hard, right? But I want you to do a couple things. Actually, let me give you the other reverse perspective here, and then I'll move my barricade if I need to. I want you to consider having your finger, you know, up near the trigger, right? Just to practice the aspect of taking your finger off the trigger, right? So when I switch shoulders, I always bring my lead hand back, right? This hand, right, to the mag well. And while I do that, I touch something else. So I get my finger off the trigger. Touch, right? Now, for those of you that are translating this on the IDPA Facebook page, good morning, by the way, this is a great application of something where you switch shoulders and you shot on the right side of the barricade. Now you got to shoot on the left side of the barricade in this stage, because we just got done shooting. Can you whip the safety on? Sure. It's a little slower though, right? So you probably won't. But what I am certainly going to do is make sure my trigger finger is nowhere near the trigger. And then I'm simply going to take the stock. I'm going to drive it or move it up or over my sling. Of course, this is defensive rifle context, so I have a sling on, right? Put it on the opposite side, and then I'm going to switch hands, right? So now I have the rifle on my left shoulder. To switch again, finger comes off the trigger, grab that magazine area. Typically, I will grab the whole magazine. Stock comes over to the next position, switch hands, right? So all I'm doing is I'm going finger, finger, switch, switch, switch. Okay. So that's my shoulder switch from position to position. Now, if you are, if you're doing this for, you know, home defense purposes, and you're doing that slow, deliberate search, well, you know, your finger would be off the trigger already. So you're just, you know, you're coming up to a left edge of a door, right? I may switch to the other shoulder. Now I'm slicing the pie this direction, if that makes any sense. Okay. Good morning. And whoever said that I'm your favorite instructor from ACY. Hey. William, you're welcome. Chris, you're welcome as well for your match game. I figured so, right? And someone said about, oh, train that using a BB gun repetitive. William, you're exactly right. You don't have to do this live. I actually have a little red gun somewhere. I think it's over there in the corner, or an unloaded rifle. You can work on a lot of these handling skills without, you know, you don't need to shoot live rounds. I will tell you, though, if you're going to go bilateral and you're going to work on bilateral stuff, you have to go to the range and shoot on your off shoulder. That's the challenge. Can you effectively shoot and manipulate your rifle or your carbine or your pistol like this is off your off shoulder? Okay. So Brian, that's a good question. So Brian asked, would I recommend an SBR pistol versus a full rifle? I don't know. I think that if you're moving a long gun around a vehicle or a home, which is what everybody wants, that's the cool thing on in the shooting circles these days. You're going to probably find it a little bit easier and more successful to utilize a shorter barrel than, for example, let's say a 16-inch barrel or whatever else. But you could very easily, if you train with it and practice it, utilize, a 14.7-inch welded comp barrel, which would be legal, which would not be an SBR, in and around your home. So I can't really tell you one way or the other. I don't particularly like arm braces on, setups in terms of what I'm doing and mounting and shooting fast, but it does allow you to have a shorter barrel on a defensive tool or system. So that's kind of a personal decision, and probably a little bit shorter barrel is going to be easier to move in and around a vehicle or in and around your home and walls, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, if that makes sense. Okay, Christian, thank you very much for learning a lot. I appreciate that. And yeah, airsoft. Someone mentioned airsoft. I love that. So cool. All right, folks. Any other questions on the positions? So just as a reminder, we talked about just a few things today. We talked about the utility, of a high-rated position and when and where you might do that. I also talked to you about, my personal choice on not using a high muzzle position very often. I think it could be dangerous from the perspective of eating the muzzle or getting someone tackles me, driving into my face. It, to me, doesn't allow the opportunity for a good shooting position. But I still practice it because there may be some reasons, for example, that I need to move around someone with a muzzle high position. We also talked about the tenets of a low ready type position where the thumb is right in that safety, muzzle's outside of your vision. And by the way, either position you pick, I'm a believer that the muzzle should be outside of your vision. I don't want you to occlude your vision and not be able to see something. We also talked about utilizing cover and maybe slicing the pie. So when I'm going to this right position, my right foot goes forward. I cheat the stock more out to my right. I'm going to tuck that elbow, right? And I'm going to be in a position where I'm going to try to minimize my exposure as much as possible versus expose myself to this position. Not good right here. Like you see lots of exposure. We don't want lots of exposure, right? We want a position where I can shoot, effectively as much as I need to, boom, 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 and not expose a lot of my body. In this case, this is the right-hand side. This is the right edge movement, right? So if I go to the left, and leave the gun on my right shoulder, once again, lots and lots and lots of exposure where I could have switched to my opposite side shoulder, right? And be much more protected, right? If I need to. Tuck the left elbow in that case, cheat the stock to my left side position. So we talked about a lot of things. And one last thing real quick, in terms of positioning, when you're talking about speed, I want you to remember that the true way to develop speed in terms of your mount process is to drive that stock or pistol brace up to your face, right? So this right here, I can see the optic and I can see the dot in my optic window, right? So if I don't find this position very quickly, I'll not find the dot. So when you're working on your mount, drive it up to your face. Drive it up to your face. You hear that? Doesn't feel good, but it's the only way to find speed, right? Right. So whatever you're working, multi-position mount, which I cover a bunch of the defensive rifle book. In one of the first drills we do is multi-position mount, right? So we're mounting from the low ready, firing our shot, mounting from the muzzle high position, firing our shot, mounting from the stock over shoulder position, firing our shot. And each one of these, I'm trying to find my cheek weld and develop that speed. If you find your cheek weld, you'll find your optic window or your scope or your iron sights faster, and you'll see the dot or the sights faster, and you'll be able to fire faster. Okay, so there we go. Okay. So Tony says the ATF may be reversing its position on AR pistol soon. That would not surprise me. It's not the first time that the ATF has reversed something that they put out. So if they do, they do. We'll just have to pay attention to that and then adjust from there. Okay. All right, folks. I don't see any other questions popping up. Thank you for joining me on this live stream this morning. If you're one of my members, don't forget our members Q&A is tonight at 5:30 Central PM. If you just jumped on halfway through or toward the end of this live stream, please go ahead and rewind the video. Go back. I believe IDPA also posted on there YouTube page, I think, the replay, so you can check that out as well. So thanks for jumping on the Shooting Performance page, the American Warrior Society page, as well as the IDPA page. And thank you all for thanking me. Next week, we are doing more defensive rifle. I think I'm going to try to do something I haven't done a lot of. I think I'm going to try to do a little bit of weapon retention next week. And I'm also going to show you some of those close quarter positions. Tucking the stock under your arm, over your shoulder, striking and countering someone that's at contact distance, because we talk a lot about, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 50, 20 yards, but we don't talk a lot about that 0 to 1 yard distance, that 0 to 1 or 2 yard distance. How do we manage the long gun there? How do we actually do that? We'll talk about that. And there is one more thing I do want to talk about, which I may do next week or the week after. I want to talk about transitions. So we're going to go to a discussion on the transitions. Matter of fact, maybe we'll do that next week. We'll see. We'll see what I feel like doing next week. But in one way or the other, we'll do 1 or 2 more weeks of defensive rifle. And then for the springtime, maybe we'll jump right back into competition, handgun and competing. Who knows? All right, folks. That's all I have. Happy St. Patrick's Day. Y'all have a great day. Semper Fi, stay safe. Quinn members, thank you for being part of us, ACSS as well. And for those of you new folks that watch this, thank you for jumping on. And until then, train hard.